Okay, and the AI meeting minute taker is also running now. Um, so I'll call the what are we, September 30th, 2025 ITAC meeting to order. And as usual, the first, or as I like to call it, the zeroth um, item on the agenda is to find somebody to take the notes for this call. Charles took him last time, so he's out. I have to talk and run the meeting, so I'm out. That leaves four of you, three of you rather, as options.
I think I may be the person who's done it least recently. So
All right, thank you, Jonathan. So this the second thing is to take attendance. Um, I guess you can see that on the Zoom. I don't have a last name for Josh as a member of the public. I don't know if the rules require that, but Josh, would be helpful if you would let us know so that we can get that into the list. Josh Andrew, thank you very much, Josh. Um, all right, so moving on. Um, Let me. Where is the share button? There it is. We'll need to approve the minutes from last time. So let me know if you can't see that.
I see it.
Okay, cool. Oh, we have another member of the public joining in, Patricia Gular. So hello, Patricia. Welcome to the meeting. We are just getting started and getting ready to review the minutes from last time. You guys just let me know when to scroll.
This is a minor point, but it seems to change font size right in the middle of the first paragraph.
I hate Word. No offense, Charles. All right, I will take an action to fix that before I send it to um, the town clerk. I don't want to spend time on that right now.
That's
That'll
fine.
just that'll just take forever.
Yeah, that was an eagle eye there, Dan. I can't see the difference, but that's fine. That's all right.
happened to Emacs.
Well, yeah, that if I were still secretary, this would all be in text on Emacs, and nobody would. This would never be an issue.
I think you've got like a law check template for meeting notes.
No, it's just plain text. I'm not going to go that far. Oh, there's Paul. Okay. And again, just let me know when you're ready for me to scroll.
I'm good.
But I know other folks just joined, so
Yep. And Jonathan, you're catching the new people popping in,
Um, I
or
assumed that the AI transcript would actually.
one thing it doesn't do is capture the attendance.
Oh, all right. Yes. Then yes, the answer is I absolutely am.
Okay, thank you.
Can you scroll some more?
Yep.
I have a question about my own notes, I guess. It's a minor issue. It's under the section called Comprehensive Plan Implementation Update.
Yep.
Uh, Chris Ryan said that the original plan was created a certain number of years ago. I heard 7 years, and I think the AI recorder heard 7 years. Anybody hear something different? Like it was 15 years ago, or
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember that there was something from like really long ago that nothing ever happened with, and that they started to revive the process more recently. So seven could be a reasonable number, but I don't really remember what he said.
Yeah, I thought 2018 was mentioned earlier, and that would match up with
Oh,
That
it.
would make sense. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, okay.
I'm ready to scroll.
One thing I found interesting in checking my own notes and also the AI recorder, Chris never named the firm. He only said where it was located, to the best of my knowledge, which, upon reflection looks a little bit odd, but at least we know where
Um,
it's located.
yeah. Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, we'd have to go back to the recording to
I don't think it was mentioned. I
yeah.
honestly don't.
I'm sure if
I
we had
see.
called him out on it, he would have told us who it was. I probably just
Yeah.
didn't think we needed
Yeah,
him to be bothered with
I'm
that.
not criticizing him. I'm just saying it was something that slipped by. That's all.
Yeah.
I should remember this, but I didn't put it in my notes from last time. Do we really not have a sustainability committee of any kind?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
mean,
well,
there's Sustainable
Yeah.
Belmont, obviously, but not affiliated with the government.
Right. I mean, there's some energy committee, but that's I think their focus is different. He actually I think he even said something about that.
yeah. Well, it's not part of our charter, but I hope someone's looking into that.
Um,
I'm not sure that we achieved total consensus on how the town website should be updated, but I think we agreed that there should be many different ways that information can find their way there. But this paragraph about we agreed that department heads should have the authority and tools to post information directly to the town. It sort of implies
yeah.
we think that they
Yeah. I
do it.
remember we discussed it. I don't know that I mean, we certainly didn't vote on a conclusion. Um, how do we want to word that?
You could
Yeah,
say
I remember it being almost somewhat contentious.
you could say they discussed whether,
Yeah.
which we did. We just discussed it, and
Right.
the memory of people saying, wasn't sure whether we should have the department head should have the direct ability to put things on the website. Yeah, I agree that in reflection, that probably wasn't agreed upon, but we certainly discussed it.
They do, by the way, just as an FYI, they do.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Well,
I
that's
think
good
they,
to know.
well, it's sort of a can they versus should they, are they?
I've got an exciting update on that once I get my updates. But
Okay. Well, last week we didn't know that. Last month, I mean, sorry.
yeah,
Some of these departments, they've got so much stuff going on already. They don't want to have to learn another tool and be responsible for another thing.
So what do you want to change it to?
I just said they discussed ideas such as giving department heads the authority and tools to post information directly, yada, yada, yada.
Okay. But I think there was a consensus that we shouldn't rely solely on the webmaster. or a marketing professional. I'm not sure.
Again, we didn't vote on anything, so we discussed it. We didn't, and I think it's correct to leave it as we discussed it as opposed to concluded. Because if we were going to make a statement, we'd have to have voted on it. I mean,
No, no, no. I'm not.
and we didn't.
Yeah. I think we brought up the issue of whether we should rely solely on a webmaster. We
Yeah,
just didn't
right.
read.
That was there, and I've left that text in here.
Okay. All right. Good. All right.
All I changed was that we discussed it instead of agreed on it.
Yeah, that's appropriate from my memory. Yeah.
Good minutes, Charlie.
Beach Street Center is spelled wrong. It's Beech,
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Good catch. Yes.
Okay.
Oh my Lord, you're right. It's not down by
Right.
the
Fixed.
Bad meeting notes, Charlie. No.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord. Yes, let's not suggest that there's a sandbar down there that was got it.
I didn't notice that. That's what we needed. We need a Beach Street Center for the beach.
All right. Any other comments on the minutes or a motion to approve?
It's another one of those font changes. The last
Yeah,
paragraph.
that I'll take care of that before I submit it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Jim?
I gotta abstain because I wasn't at the meeting last time.
Okay. I'll vote yes. Jonathan?
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
And Paul?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries. The minutes are approved. I have the action just to clean up the fonts, and I'll change the word draft to approved already so I don't forget, because I did that once and they actually flagged it. And I can stop sharing. All right. Next thing on the agenda is an opportunity for public comments and questions. So Kimberly, Patricia, or Josh? All right, I'll take that as a no. And Josh is asking about an update on social media plans. So Chris, is that part of your expected talk?
Yes.
Okay, so in that case, let's move right into item 4 and turn the floor over to Chris.
All right. Thank you. It's been a while, but we've got quite a bit to report in IT. It's been a very, very busy summer. As you know, we've already started the budget process for fiscal year 27. It feels like we do budgets all 12 years in Belmont, but it's a good exercise. So we plan on being just as aggressive this year with our operating and capital budgets. That really worked out well this last year. First and foremost, the biggest accomplishment this summer is we completely replaced the entire phone system. We replaced almost 1,000 phones in every town and school building, including public safety. We had to do this very quickly. I think, as you knew, as there were some issues with the contract. And the net result is this ends up saving the town between $100,000 and $150,000 over what the prior contract was, with a much better product that's all purchased under state contract with Verizon. So I have to give credit to Sam Ross, my assistant IT director, who really managed a lot of the logistics in this. If you've ever managed a phone project, you know how many moving pieces there are and numbers to line up and recordings to get right. And based on the speed and scope of this, I've been extremely impressed with everyone involved. The vendors have been great, and we continue to go through our punch list and keep refining that as we go. Second to that, we successfully completed our Google migration last month. So the town is now on the Google platform. This is already paying dividends in terms of collaborating with the schools, with the library, with Belmont Media. And again, based on the size of that, that's been a pretty seamless transition and opens up a lot of opportunities for us. Based on the capital projects from last fiscal year and current fiscal year, we've been able to upgrade the entire police server architecture. So we've gone where they were basically 100% on physical machines still. We've been able to go to a 100% hyper-converged architecture over there. We're using a platform called Scale, the benefit of which is it does not use VMware. So that alone saves the town $30,000 or $40,000 a year in the new licensing costs. And we are in the middle of upgrading the town server architecture this fall. So we will basically have replaced 100% of the server architecture in this last year. And with the simplification of resources, that ends up basically paying for itself quicker because it greatly reduces our annual hardware support costs and software support costs and a few things, plus a whole bunch of other benefits. We've been managing that with our MSP, so that's gone well. That goes hand in hand with our normal now recurring workstation replacement plan, where we continue to replace about a fourth of the machines every year. So we've really caught up on the age of our oldest machines, which has a lot of benefits, not the least of which is security benefits. So a lot of other stuff going on, but to jump to the website, as we talked about in the past, due to some staff restructuring, we have been able to create a full-time web and social media coordinator position. We've been conducting interviews the last 2 weeks. We've got a few really strong candidates, and we plan on making an offer probably by the end of this week, early next week, and hope to have that person start, by the end of October, early November. So that's going to be huge. So to your point about department heads being able to edit the web pages, so they've always had that capability, but to your point, no one's really owned it. So we're really hoping now that having a full-time staff person as a resource, right, to all departments, also just having someone whose job it is to think about ways to improve the website, I think we're really going to advance that pretty rapidly now. And part of the mandate for that job is also to create a web and social media strategy to start standardizing some of the sort of standalone social media platforms out there that some of the departments have, and really kind of focus that voice. Sort of smaller updates on the website, but we have upgraded the accessibility tool. So we're using a tool called AudioEye now that we were able to get really good pricing on. So that's sort of the premier accessibility tool. And we are experimenting with a sort of chat search bot that needs to be trained a little bit right now through a company called CityBot. New Orleans and a couple other cities around the country are using it. We've sort of been doing that as a soft launch now, just because we haven't had the web person in place to really look at the analytics and kind of get that optimized. But we're excited to do more with that and to improve the searching. And that's most of the big stuff, but a lot of other things. If anyone has any questions.
So I'm kind of happy to hear that you're not stuck on VMware, especially after all what I'm seeing in the news about how Broadcom is doing to them what they did to Symantec. But what hypervisor does Scale use?
They have their own. They basically built it in for this reason.
Okay.
So they have their own proprietary one. It's very similar. It does snapshots and hardware HA failover and things locally. We are still using Acronis in the cloud to back up the images in the cloud as well, so we can store as part of the MSP. But they're becoming a leader in municipal and education, other spaces that can't afford to keep up with VMware.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Chris?
I will point out too, in terms of other upgrades, we do have some pretty significant GIS upgrades planned for the upgraded public map viewer and some other layers and integrations. We are looking at some permitting upgrades for this next year. And we have had some initial discussions with Public Works and Town Administrator on creating a GIS sort of position to work with some of those projects. But I think we could do a lot more with the integrating GIS as well. So that's a discussion for this budget cycle.
Yeah, that was something Chris brought up last time, and he actually mentioned it when Dan and I met him back in the summer. Chris Ryan, that is. And I have to admit, I expressed a little bit of surprise because I remember that Dave Petto had invested a lot of effort in getting Esri stuff in house and developing at least a couple of programs built on it. I gather that probably was not done either enough or that it's fallen out of date. But where does that live? Are we still using ESRI? Is it? Are we doing something brand new?
No, so Esri is a tool in the toolbox for GIS.
Right.
It's not the end all be all. It does what it does. It's an internal tool, allows us to edit layers, create maps, right, etc. So one of the challenges we've had in GIS, similar to the web, is that there's a lot of disparate GIS projects in different departments. We have different contractors, Weston and Sampson and other people who are maintaining sort of siloed GIS data. We have the sort of public GIS map that we have got an overhaul for that planned right away. That's going to be a significant upgrade in terms of how the public interacts with the map. There are some sort of parallel projects. So the assessor's department is very far along now in upgrading the CAMA system to Vision, which is going to be a huge upgrade for just our assessor department in general, but also that public lookup tool. As we're making upgrades to our permitting software, as we talk about like document management and scanning, there are all these integration points that could really start coming together so that GIS becomes more of a living thing. So Esri would continue to be a software tool available to the town and available to these different pieces, but really it's a different strategy. And now that we're bringing all of this together to create a sort of a cohesive GIS experience so that all departments, public safety, assessors, planning are accessing these tools just in a more dynamic way, and the public benefit too.
I think some of the surprise that we had was because at least personally, I didn't understand all the different things that fall under the umbrella of GIS. And so David set up a system that was very useful for infrastructure, but didn't have all the other kinds of records that Chris mentioned, or that you just mentioned. So there's a lot more stuff that can go into a GIS system, and I think it's good that we're rounding it out and fill it.
Yeah. So that's a priority this year. So there's sort of a comprehensive strategy around integration, permitting, document management, web interface, and sort of, I think the focus this year is a lot more on using the tools, not just having the tools, and really sort of bringing it together. Now that we've evolved our infrastructure a little bit. So it's as a milestone, it's been almost just over a year since I came. So we're happy that we've been able to fully build out the IT department. All the staff that we've built is still with us. It's a great team. We've got a lot of cooperation with the schools, with the library now. We've been working closely with the library to get the fiber connected and get the wireless architecture and make sure all that's coordinated. We've been working with the skating rink to get that centralized. On a boring level, now as one of a budget goal, we're starting to put a print management plan in place with the goal of reducing printing as much as possible, simplifying it as much as possible, getting it managed under IT. So we've already centralized all phone billing, cell phone billing. We're starting to bring more software under the IT department. And printers are kind of boring, but as I always say, the best is to have no printers.
Mhm.
So we've really been pushing that, and the second best is to get have as few of the powerful multifunction machines as we can, and really start triaging. We're looking at putting a software in like PaperCut that can really make printing more secure and reduce the amount of paper that we're outputting. And we've actually been fairly successful in terms of not getting pushback in that. So.
That's pretty amazing considering the what Dave used to tell us about trying to get rid of printers. Uh, anyway, on a staffing question, the last time I exchanged email with Peter, I always butcher his last name at the library. He still was trying to
Struzziero.
hire Struzziero. Thank you, Paul. Trying to hire somebody to replace Ellen for his IT. Do you know if he's managed to do that, or is this an opportunity to funnel work your way? What are the possibilities there?
I think they're still looking. They have engaged us in some of the inner workings of the library IT a little bit more, so we've been excited to build some relationships there. Um, I think there is some opportunity. I mean, I think much like the school, there are some definite, unique aspects of a library tech, right, person. There's
Mhm.
a very different culture there, and they have some different roles. But I think the way we're structured now, we could certainly absorb some of the higher level infrastructure discussions and do some standardization. They're fortunate in that they work with MinLib, who's been very supportive, the Library Consortium Network,
Right.
with a lot of their IT needs. We have had some discussions with MinLib and the library about leveraging more of their Google investment to simplify their architecture over there a little bit, and they've been open to that. I think one of the challenges is they've been sort of uh, disparate right now. They're all over the place, and so they don't really have a home. I think getting them all back in that building and returning to some sort of normal operation will make it easier to think about normalizing staffing and getting some of these other projects going.
Right.
Can I ask about some of the cyber related issues we've talked about, like comprehensive cyber incident response plan, tabletop exercises, and some of those other things? I know
I
it's
just
been a
Yeah,
want to
busy
yeah.
year,
caution
but
that we do not have an executive session tonight, and did not plan for one. So we can talk about this, but let's avoid any sensitive
yeah,
information.
high level. Yeah.
Keep it a high level. So we are still working our the security grant uh, um, piece. We actually met with Patrice today, so it's timely to talk about high level roles and sort of definitions and then putting some of that framework in place. We're kind of excited. I did introduce the idea, and this is probably not going to be for this budget cycle, but I'd love to see this in a future budget cycle, um, of having ownership, a staff position who owns sort of the cybersecurity piece. And I think our approach would be different than what I've seen other cities and towns, which is a lot of the nuts and bolts of our cybersecurity plan is covered by our MSP, is covered by our vendors and our software investment. But I think what we really need, similar to the discussion around a web coordinator or a GIS, is that local ownership of someone who's going to make sure that the policies and procedures are created, that they're updated, that they're trained against, to sort of project manage. So I introduced that concept in the part of the budget cycle this year. I realistically don't see that position being created this go around, but I'm going to start introducing the idea, and maybe for the next fiscal year or beyond, I'd love to see, and that could be a true town-wide, right, town school, right,
Yes.
position, to
Yeah.
just it's almost like a compliance position.
This
So
is like a CISO,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Um, so that's where we're thinking on
Yeah.
that. But we are, and I mean, we're in a much stronger position with our MSP in place, and we are leveraging, all best practices and all tools available to us in our stack. So, as I like to say, I have sleep at night levels of confidence in terms of what we're doing. But I'd like to get to that mature phase where we do have a compliance officer, and we are doing the more tabletop, more training, more documentation, I'd love to see even something
Yeah.
comprehensive with HR around a learning management system and, policy system. And so that's sort of where my mind is, but it's an
As we
evolution.
know, layer 8 is the most vulnerable one, right? So
Yeah.
it's where most of these campaigns start. So yeah, I agree with you.
We are taking advantage of the cybersecurity awareness, the training through the state as part of that grant using Know Before. So
Mhm.
we're
Mhm.
leveraging some of the
Yeah.
lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. The next thing on the agenda then is an opportunity for any other topics to come up.
Uh, I wanted to bring up the prospect of doing some sessions at uh, the library, ideally after it opens, but maybe even at the Beach Street Center before. And would like to hear the committee's thoughts on what we might do and who might do it and when we might be able to do it. I think cybersecurity and protecting yourself from, online threats and, maybe even the capabilities of AI and hands of hackers might be useful for residents to hear about.
Yeah, I know what we did a series on some of these topics a couple of years ago, and we could probably use a lot of that material because those things haven't changed. But there's also
Which
a
has
bunch of
changed, right?
new problems that have been showing up. And we talked about this a little bit, I think, last spring. AI is creating whole new uh, versions of things like catfishing that are just um, so much easier and so much more powerful than they were. And
Yeah,
people are getting, especially seniors, are getting
I
stuck
agree.
on these. The most recent thing I saw was that, and this is from, I think, from the AARP magazine. So I'm dating myself, I know. Um, is about these friendship scams. So they're like catfishing, except there's no romance. They just want to be your friend and use that as leverage in order to get things from people, which turns out to be very powerful because people have started to become used to the idea of being skeptical about internet romance, but they're not skeptical about internet friends. And in some cases, it might be a good idea if they were. So,
Yeah. I read an article talking about how attackers are really kind of leveraging AI to do research on prospective victims and looking for particularly seniors who, have things that they're passionate about, like, antique cars or things like that, and then
yes.
using that as part of the hook. So like, oh hey, I've got a, whatever, 1981, whatever. I know you're interested in this car. Oh yeah. And then, you get the whole transaction going.
Yeah, because it
So
gets
that kind of really targeted attack. Yeah.
it gets people through your outer defenses right away. Like, hey, we like the same bands, we listen to the same music, we go to the same concerts. Of course, I'm just
Well,
AI, but
right. Or like, I got this car for sale. It's the type of car that you've, made really clear in your posts you're passionate about. And like, oh, hey, look, I got one for sale. And it's in your news feed. And like, oh, I reached out to you, you know? And it's like, yeah. So yeah, no, it's next level. So I mean, anyway, I thought about I mean, I could I've been working with them on the Fix It Clinic, which is October 25th. Just a reminder, if you have got something to get fixed, you can register it and meet with the Fix It coach. But I also talked with them, Peter and his team, just about, getting some of these sessions scheduled. Definitely after the new library opens, but even potentially before it. Might be a good fall talk on online cyber risk and kind of what's the latest and greatest of what's out there. And work with Belmont PD obviously on that. So if other folks are up for it, I can try and lock down a date and we can use that as a deadline, a hard deadline.
I'd be happy to help organize it and work with the media center to make sure that we get it recorded and put up for people to watch on whenever they want from the Belmont Media Center website.
You want to try for like a early November, mid-November type thing?
Trying to think where the various holidays fall this year. Kind of mid-November.
We know where Thanksgiving. Yeah. We know where Thanksgiving is.
Yeah.
Well,
It's always
it's a moving target. It can be anywhere within 6 days. So,
But mid-November generally, I think before kind of pre-Thanksgiving would be, and give us time to pull some stuff together. I think you're right in terms of the slides and content. A lot of that's just gonna kind of stay the same.
We probably also want to make sure that we include somebody like Jim Siracusa.
yes.
Yes.
I've
talked with Jim about this, and he's definitely open to it. I mean, I haven't talked about specific dates, but he's open to it.
We should just check on the town calendar and the school calendar and make sure we're not competing with homecoming or some other thing,
I can check as we're speaking, but yeah.
I have no idea when anything else is happening in November. So
All I know is there's a concert the week before Thanksgiving, I think it is.
Vance Gilbert, second Friday. That's at the First Church. Oh, you have a concert, you mean?
Yeah, the Belmont band concert is what is that? This November. Oh, I'm in the wrong month. That's why I'm not finding it.
Thanksgiving is the 27th.
It's Thursday the 20th is the community band concert. Again, I don't know. I'm assuming that they're tying us to either a high school or a middle school band concert that's already on that date, like they did last spring.
Yeah.
But I don't actually know that for certain.
So we could do a Thursday evening. Or we could do
Like I said, that is a Thursday evening.
yeah.
The 13th I'm talking about, not the 20th.
Oh, yeah,
the
if you did it,
13th.
yeah,
Or we
if
could
you did
do
it the week before, yeah.
We could do a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. Might be easier for people to come to that.
Right.
Yeah,
Hi, as a member of the public, I'm just thinking that as a IT technology committee, and I appreciate, 100% that the whole scams and catering to in-person events is tremendous, but the one-time events doesn't necessarily secure as a technology department. What are we doing on our websites? And so I think Paul mentioned partnering with the Belmont PD.
On the
I think
presentation.
they do, so like a one-time presentation is, that's great. That's supplemental. People will show. It's Belmont. I live in an old people neighborhood. People will show. But when it comes down to like the quick Google, who's scamming my grandma right now, to be on the website. And I think that's where we are still not utilizing the Belmont website, whether it's the safety on the fire department or particularly the police department with the scams. Don't do this, don't do this.
I have
So
a
I
couple
think they
ideas on that, if you
go.
don't mind. Yeah.
I can't hear somebody, but I'm just going to say, like, I think they go to Belmont Media Center and they do like a 10-minute segment on, here's what to do and here's not what to do and here are the scams. But that's a 10-minute video, and to do a quick see shot for safety, I really think behooves, just putting that content on our website and then having the events. Or then you can watch a clip
I have
on
a couple
Belmont
ideas
Media.
around that, if I could share.
Go ahead.
So this is in my thinking too. And once we get this web person on board, I've got some ideas around this. Um, One of the things we've been working on in the back end, I think to Kimberly's point, is I've been trying to ingrain in people the idea that, cybersecurity and emergency management are the same thing. So as we've been strengthening the way we approach emergency management in general, which our fire chief has been really bolstering lately, making sure that cybersecurity is recognized as a major arm of incident response and emergency management. So what I'd love to see, and I think what Kimberly's talking about, is we start building up a content library, right? So we can take these one-time things, but we can take white papers, we can take sort of resources. And I think our goal, once we get our social media matured a little bit, is to start building up our audiences, so that we've got a wider group of people that are engaged. So whether that be, just directing more people to the website or building up social media audiences so we can do those targeted communications as we're communicating with people. And then developing a dedicated emergency management, basically, resource page on the town website, of which cybersecurity could be a major component. So when I was in North Andover, for example, we had piloted some of this stuff, and the timing was not good, and that we went from having the Columbia gas crisis right into COVID back to back in that. But it paid off having all this stuff built up. In different times of year, we would have different campaigns and say, hey, it's hurricane season. Make sure you visit, the website /emergency, and here's the 3 resources we have on how to prepare yourself for hurricanes. And those resources always live there. And then we would just have sort of different campaigns during the year. And as we build up that content library, which could be a combination of videos with Belmont Media, it could be white papers that we write, it could be in-person events, at the Beach Street. Then different times throughout the year, we can send out blasts and say, have you updated your password? Are you aware of, this scam? Come back to the website, and there's all these other resources available to you. But it really starts with building up that content library. So on a small scale, one of our plans with the new web position is to create a series, and I've done this other places as well, almost like a Did You Know series, very basic, some sort of monthly series on Belmont Media, maybe 10-minute segments of just saying, hey, did you know on the new website you can do this right tool? Have you signed up, to receive notifications? And starting to put that library together. And then this becomes sort of an arm of that, and having a dedicated page. So those are all in the works.
Wow.
But content is king. So that's always the hardest part, is getting that library built.
Yeah, and then curated.
Yes.
Curate. We don't need
Right.
10 minutes. The Belmont Media Center does a really great job of giving us like 10-minute or 12-minute segments.
Well, I mean, Kimberly, I think that's a great idea. And if you want to reach out to Jim Siracusa and the Belmont PD and see if they're interested in taking part in that, then absolutely,
Well,
that would work.
They should be. I think that's part of. I mean, I think that we also paid for the Belmont websites for the PD and the fire department to have specialized, above the average websites, hosting websites. And I think we're still waiting for content. And I understand that we are really short on hands, but there are, I think, a lot of people who are willing to help out, and a lot of examples out there. We all have hurricanes, we all have, fires, we all have this, these sorts of things, and, just to be a resource. So, point taken. Yeah.
I really I like the idea. I think it would be helpful to the citizens of Belmont and the community. I'm just concerned about the cost involved and the expertise available.
What is the
'Cause
cost?
I don't think we should be in the
Time.
business of developing like unique security materials to describe current cyber threats to citizens. We can be a gateway that says, here are some places where you can find up-to-date assets about current security hazards, but otherwise the cost is going to balloon out of control, and we can't be experts for everything, but we can know where to point people for the right resources.
Well, I agree. Cybersecurity or hurricane preparedness or emergency preparedness. Those resources available with, on the, state level, here's what you need in your hurricane kit, or here's what you want to have in your,
Yeah, I mean, Kim, what
but to have them readily available from
hurricanes are a
Belmont.
threat, but the reality is there are scams. There are Belmontonians being scammed and losing hundreds of thousands of dollars every year.
Right. So top five
Probably
scams.
people being scammed every single week.
Yeah.
And they walk into the police department to report the crime. There's very little that the police can do because many of the criminals are outside of the United States. So this is really about
So why is our
just
police
kind of
department
raising
not putting
raising
that
awareness.
information, top five scams on their website? And
Yeah,
then
I would
and push it
agree. And
out.
I think
Then,
what
yeah,
they would say is staffing and,
yeah,
resources. We're busy out on the streets. We don't have,
yeah.
dedicated person to be, updating that
Yeah, I'm
content.
just playing devil's advocate, but I don't need me to, we don't necessarily need a full-time person to even help with a fire department or police department or public safety. I mean, it's pretty, I mean, this is low-hanging public safety fruit. And it's low-hanging communication to residents, engagement. How do you engage your community? I mean, if we're looking at, we may not be, but when we look at, are we going to need to override? What kind of engagement have we had in the last couple of years with the residents to make them feel a part of the community that they want to invest in? And that comes to the website, which is technology. And it comes to our newsletters, which is technology. And it comes back to the engagement when I need a permit to take down a tree. It comes down to technology. So I think it's a really, it's a limited circle that we all need to like figure it out. Because at the end of the day, it's not, oh, this department or that department. It reflects on all of us.
I
On all
think
the,
it's important. I think it's important, though, to understand for what things the town would be considered a definitive source of information. And there's a difference in pushing information to people via a newsletter, which is something that people can react passively to, versus going to a destination to look for information. If somebody's going to look for information about current security incidents, more likely to go to Google or the New York Times than the Town of Belmont website. If they're looking for something that's hyper local, they'll probably go to the website. So I think we have to think through some of these things to figure out like what is the best medium for the information that we want to communicate. Because I don't think too many people would think if you ask them on a survey, what are the top like 10 places you would go to look for information about like computer security scans? I don't think the Town of Belmont website would be even on the list unless you included the word local in that or town, in the town.
And
Yeah,
let
I
me
think. Go ahead, Jonathan.
just a quick point that, when I think about town security, I think of actually a funny place, but rather good place to find out information about what the issues are for town residents is to read online the police blotter, they call it police blog or something, which highlights over the course of the week the various crimes that have been committed and reported by residents. And in fact, I noticed that they spend rather an inordinate amount of time detailing these cybersecurity incidents, explaining what happened, what the resident experience, and and unfortunately the lack of ability to respond in a meaningful way. But at least it's highlighted there. So I think this information is out there. It's probably not in form or under the heading that you might expect it to be. But for people who are interested in town security, local crime, local events related to security, that's where they go. And I think that information is there.
Yeah, I'll just give that was a good
Yep.
example. I really love that, Jonathan, because I read that
Right.
column too.
And the police
just if I can
do.
add,
Sorry, go ahead.
I
Sorry, go
just want to
ahead.
add one other example, which is, when there's a power outage, often citizens will report it faster on Twitter X or Facebook than like web updates for the power company, for Belmont Electric. So, people have their sources that they use, and maybe one thing to think about, maybe you were suggesting this, Jonathan, is figuring out a way to provide more ready access to information that's already out there.
Right. And I think that's kind of how I see it. And I think that's kind of what Chris was alluding to, is that the information is kind of there, as you've pointed out. It's not consolidated in the way that I think Kimberly is asking for. The website's probably an okay place for that consolidation to a point, but the police already, for example, when they get above a certain number of reports of a particular type of scam, you'll see the Facebook posting come out. 5 residents this week got bit by XYZ. And I think the social media strategy probably wants to improve on that, but I think that's kind of where it goes. The defensive stuff, guidance and so on. I agree with Jim. I don't think we've got the cycles in the town to be experts on that. On the other hand, the information is out there, and if somewhere along the line it would make sense to find a way to get that information there for the specific things that are showing up the most. Not necessarily every possible thing that could go wrong, because that's a rat hole we don't want to go down.
Yeah.
I agree that we are. I mean, it's not our core competence to be experts in cybersecurity, issues as a town. And I think that there are a lot of websites, the FBI website, so on and so forth, that are that those are repositories for, the current scams and frauds and things like that. But I do think that maybe we could provide a better, ready access. We could curate those slightly as a town and say, oh, this is a good, concise, description of things that are relevant to our residents, and then provide links. That would be my.
Well, just from some philosophical ideas on this, because I mean, and to put a positive spin on it, I think we're all in agreement and we're all saying the same thing. I mean, I'm sort of taking a build and they will come approach right to this. So I'm thinking of this as a strategy. We want to build some trust around town communication, the town website as a good, reliable source of truth that has value to it. That I think we have some work to do there. I think we need to build that audience and that muscle memory, right? Because you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be building that engagement during an incident, right? So you want to start driving engagement in a normalized way. So, and again, I shared just sort of it's very simple, but sort of a resource page that I think in the chat that's akin to some of the stuff we're talking about. So I like the idea, and we've had some discussions about this, and I actually plan on doing this, of having a URL like belmont-ma.gov/emergency. And we start ingraining the concept of that, right? So if there's something important, that's going to be one-stop shopping where you're going to go. There's going to be information on whatever current event, incident is happening. You're just going to get good links. And we're going to be proactively building that audience, with our residents, either through email lists, or we have our reverse, our E911 type system that we can call people out on. It's sort of like a threshold, so that you can't really post too much on Facebook or tweet too much, but you can send too many emails, and you can certainly call people too many times. So there's that sort of threshold about how you use each platform to its strength, and build some of that trust. And the idea then is there'll be a lot of good resources that live there, and it'll sort of evolve. Links to state and federal agencies, MEMA, preparedness kits, cybersecurity resources, sort of campaigns that go through the year. But occasionally we'll draw people to it and say, have you gone to, slash emergency? Have you updated your profile? Have you signed up for the things you're interested in? And, in the case of an emergency, these are the channels we're going to be using. And then hopefully it doesn't, but if the big event happens, you've got that built-in audience, right, ready to go and ready to communicate with. So you're sort of pre-staging and pre-planning all those things they talk about in emergency management, and not trying to figure out how to talk to people while you're also managing an incident. So I think the good news is we're all saying the same thing. I think we're all in agreement. I've had a lot of experience in my own background about emergency management. I'm passionate about emergency management, just like I am with GIS and some of these other things. And I do think we've got some quick victories that we can get here with this position coming on. And it tends to be like a snowball, but as we build it, it becomes self-perpetuating. But lots of different options here, and I think there is some energy behind it.
I agree with most of the things I've heard, but I think I'll wind up in a different spot. So I wouldn't say we're totally in agreement. I think the way that I'm thinking is probably more aligned with what Kimberly is suggesting, and that is, first of all, we don't have to be experts. We just have to provide something useful that people don't already know. Second, yeah, the information is out there, but people aren't going out there to look at it. And the proof is the fact that we keep seeing these things showing up in the police blotter of people doing things that they really should have known better, but they don't because they don't think to go look for the information. So I don't think it's adequate to construct a repository of really good information. I think that's necessary, but it's not sufficient. We need to evangelize these ideas. We need to go to the people where they are rather than have them come to us and say, here's some things you really ought to know, and make it as easy as possible for them to acquire this information without having to learn a completely new mode of interacting with the town website.
Well,
So
that's the 1-2 punch of engagement. Yeah, we have the resources, and then we engage. Yeah.
One thing that has happened in town, I don't know if it's the last year and a half or it's the second year, and that's that we now have a town-wide newspaper. Okay.
A town-wide what, Charlie?
Newspaper.
Yes, thank you.
Everybody gets it free. Also, they've started, as I believe, to recently provide, at least I receive information from them about what's coming up in the newspaper. And you receive that electronically. I expect I've been receiving it through email. And I'm wondering, for the older people in town, much more natural for them to look to something that they've been very used to their whole life, not just the last 20 years, and that's a newspaper. If there's some way to use the newspaper to direct people to the website, maybe we should take advantage of that.
Or if they're looking for copy, we can just give them, here's a few inches on, some scams or some things to watch out for. Have you changed your password recently? Someone mentioned that. Have you backed up your computer recently? Just very, very straightforward, simple things that people need to see a couple times a year, so they remember to do them.
But also
to
perhaps alert them to the when it's established, this online library. In other words, they read about it, they go to it, and they may be much more likely to initially read about it in the newspaper than to access the website.
I think it's a good point. I think for certain demographics, that's a great vector.
And we have been talking a great deal about the generation of people in town that are being scamming primarily. And you're right, it's the older generation, not exclusively by any means, but they probably constitute a very high proportion of the scamming incidents that occur in the town of Belmont over the course of a year.
Let's not neglect.
where would those
Sorry, go ahead.
If we pitched the idea of putting some articles in the paper, where would the articles come from? Would ITAC members author them, or where would the source material come from?
Well, Chris mentioned that, he's hiring a webmaster and a social media coordinator. That person, I assume, would have a certain responsibility for creating material, and part of that material might be things that would go into the town newspaper, as well as what goes on the website, and only the website.
I bet we could get ChatGPT to just churn this stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who pays taxes in Belmont, I don't want my tax money going to print articles in the Belmont Voice or Wicked Belmont or the hyper-local newspapers. I do want my money to go to quality online content. And then if Mary Byrne from the Belmont Voice wants to write an article about cybersecurity, she can do that and then point residents to resources on the town website or the PD website, depending on where it is.
Yeah,
But
but as an individual
when we,
taxpayer, Kimberly, you don't really get to say how to implement programs. So I think it's, it's the important job of people like Chris and the town administrator to set a vision, figure out how best to
yeah,
implement that.
but when I see, I mean, maybe it's just me, but when I see a member of whether it's the police chief or the fire chief or somebody in the town administrator's office, we have a half-page article explaining an issue in the Belmont Voice. But if you Google that on the website, you wouldn't find that, pretty clear explanation. That's time and money. That clear explanation shouldn't be in that one newspaper, and maybe it goes online where somebody crumbles up and like wraps their dishes up. I mean, the explanation of what is an override and what is this and what is this, that should be, very clear and presented on our website, as other communities do. And I think that we're still learning. We have the technology now, which is great. But as a resident, I feel like that we haven't utilized it to take the burden off the people who actually work in the community. Um,
Well, Kimberly, I'm not suggesting that the Belmont Voice do the
or
work with.
whoever, I called it the voice, but whatever.
Oh, it is. It's the Belmont Voice. That's the name of it. To do the work to create an online edition of the newspaper, but there might be a way, for certain articles written by certain people to have them, published in the paper and then immediately sent to the website and listed in a particular place where people could see them again if they wanted to, or see them for the first time if they didn't see the newspaper. I mean, I think that type of coordination may be possible without necessarily adding staff to the newspaper, or for that matter, adding anything more than the webmaster and social media coordinator, on the town side, who's managing the website.
The Belmont Voice already has a website.
Does it?
Yeah.
Does it? I wasn't aware of that, but guess I'm glad to hear that. So in other words, if somebody saw it in the newspaper, there would be a way to go back and see it electronically. But what about making it part of a library of news articles that's contained on the website? As Kimberly, I believe, would probably agree would be valuable.
I mean, I rely on AI a lot more than I did a year ago. And I look to see where the source is. And sometimes it's the Belmont Citizens Forum, like sometimes it's the FB or, some other organization, sometimes it's the Voice. And as a resident, I don't know who these people are. But what I do know is belmont.gov. And I'm going to look to a .gov as the source. And if other sources of communication, other sources of media want to make their stories
So what
and then
I'm
refer
now I'm
back.
getting, I'm sorry, you've just totally lost me, Kimberly. You're relying on a .gov to provide you information about something that .gov has no real direct responsibility for. Is that what you're saying? I mean, this is where I'm getting lost. We're
No,
trying to be helpful here,
yeah,
right?
no.
But the .gov is not creating cybersecurity content. I think we've generally agreed.
.gov is the reliable source. That is the reliable, I would say, the reliable
It's just
source of content.
it's provided. It's somebody thought that a particular link had good information in it. That's all you're getting. Somebody thought that that article that they linked to on the town website in this repository, linked to, copied it in, whatever, it thought it was good information. Where
No,
you
I'm
have no
working.
guarantee that they were correct.
No, so I think we're on the same page. My assumption is, I mean, I think we're way off track now, but I think
Yes,
that the
that's
assumption
okay.
is
That always happens.
if I Google for content, whether it's cybersecurity or what to do with my trash on a holiday delay, or what's going on with the overlay project, when I Google and I come up with a .gov reference, I'm going to
Sure,
believe that to be a credible resource.
so
I'm
for
not going to
something about
know.
the overlay project, absolutely. But you're talking about generic cybersecurity guidance here. They're two very different things.
Kimberly, I mean,
They are
honestly, I spent the
incredibly
last
different
Cybersecurity
things.
or like, scams. I mean, you were
Kimberly,
talking about
I spent the
scams
Kim,
earlier. I'm just saying
I,
that if I'm going to Google, we want to have some sort of repository, not repository, but credible content on the Belmont.gov website, whether it's PD for fire
Sure,
safety
I don't think
or
we're disagreeing there. The question is, what is the extent of that content?
yeah,
And
because
that's where I
Kimberly,
think it
update.
feels like you're asking for a lot more than it
Yeah.
makes sense. Like, so when we were talking about the stuff from the police blotter getting consolidated into something so that people can see these are the things that are happening in the town recently, and maybe here's a link. And again, this is where I get a little nervous. That link may or may not be as good advice as you think on how to deal with that.
Yeah.
That's, to me, I'm okay with that. But it's I'm going to Google for something about it, and somewhere along the line, I'm going to see something in belmontma.gov. I'm not so sure that that's necessarily the best way to search for something generic, unless you're really looking for something very specific about Belmont. The Belmont website is not the source.
Well, if I want to know what to do with and I'm going to drop it after this. There's a dead animal on the street. What do I do in Belmont? It's very different from down the block in Cambridge and across the street in Watertown. So there is
Okay.
something very unique to the community that I live in. And I just need a one line. I don't need the deep links to dead animals or um, just what do I need to do as a resident, one liner, and that needs to be someplace in the hierarchy in our website sitemap.
Okay.
And that's
And
all, and
again,
that is what I'm asking for. And I think the same thing is if we're having, if our police department, if we have all these, the 5 cybersecurity things that are elderly people, or, and I'm not even say elderly people,
right.
5 hacks. What are those 5 hacks? Let's do a page on a website. I don't care what the Belmont Voice has to say,
No, that
whether it's
wasn't the
online
point
or,
about the Belmont Voice was not that you don't care what they have to say. That was about engagement. That was about how do you advertise where this information lives.
and that should live on our PD website. What are the 5 things? And we
But
should
no
look at.
one's going to find it unless you do some kind of external engagement. And Charlie's suggestion was the voice would be a reasonable way, one of the many reasonable ways of doing that.
So I'm going to ask Christopher McClure, what about our Google Analytics? What are those things that people are looking for on our Google Analytics? And we can typically see. And the 5 things, whether it's scams, whether it's the top 5 or 10 things we want to get rid of in our trash, whether it's the 5 or 10 things we want to know about town meeting. We can look at our Google Analytics. We do not need to look at outside sources. If those outside sources want to look back to us, they can. But maybe this is a function of the new person. But that is the accountability, as I think, of this committee, as well as the town administrator's office, the IT department, and the town clerk's office. We have access to this information. We should be utilizing it to serve the residents for safety, public safety, cyber safety,
What about public health?
and public health.
How do you
Public health.
deal with the question about vaccination advice?
That should go back to our gov. But when we do our public health, and I thank you for asking that, a lot of times the Belmont flyers are not, what do you call it, translatable. We do like these flyers that are not accessible in other languages. So we need to make sure they're accessible in other languages, and we push them out. We need to make sure that people can, who, what, when, where, or why, and be very clear on where these places are, because I think there's an assumption that everybody knows where, this temple is or what the Beach Street Center is. I think Belmont is very comfortable in assuming that everybody knows where these places in town are. Just
Well,
pretend.
my point about public health
Yeah.
was supposed to be more pointed in that a .gov site unfortunately now does not have the same reputation for factual information as it used to.
That's okay. We are a .gov site. So it is our job, I would say it is our job in the community. What are we doing? Where are those? And there's a number of them. Like we have the flu shots and the whatever shots, but to be really clear, what do you need? How much does it cost? Where do we need to go? And whether it's on Facebook or it's pushed out just on our website, does Google Translate? Can they read the content? And that's not always the case.
Okay, so I'm
Especially
going
when
to
it comes to public
apologize,
health.
but we're 5 minutes from
Yeah.
our intended finish. We've kind of gone down a rat hole, and I don't think we're going to have any further solution here. So unless there's any other topics, I'm going to ask the membership to start looking at scheduling our next meeting.
I think it's an interesting.
And I apologize for that, Kimberly, but we really are running late.
No, I just was asked. I didn't come here to do anything except for listen.
Thank you. I would appreciate that we not do a Tuesday for around the end of October, early November, just because Tuesdays are the rehearsals, and that'll be getting close to concert time.
How does Monday work for people?
Sorry?
Monday? How does that work for people?
That works for me. Which date do you have in mind?
Probably the end of the month.
The 27th, maybe? Let me just check.
That would work for me.
Okay for me.
I'm in Africa.
Okay for me.
Yeah.
Works good for me as well.
Okay. Thank you. I'll set it tentatively for Monday, the 27th at 7:30.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah. We have a motion to adjourn.
So
So moved.
second.
All right. All in favor? I don't think I have to really ask that. Okay. I won't go around the room. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.